What is up, security gang? Welcome to another episode of the CISO Talk podcast. It's a backwards episode today. You're saying, what do you mean backwards? Like, are you going to start at the end and go to the front? No, not at all. I've got someone on who I consider to be the CISO marketing whisperer. She's genius. One of my favorite people, just started her own brand new podcast. She's got one of the funnest shows I like to watch was Chris Roberts. And I brought her here to kind of do a backwards episode. So I was recently on her podcast and I was just like, Dani, I got to have you on the new season of CISO Talk because I want to do stuff differently, not just have CISOs on all the time. And Dani was kind enough to come on the show. She was like, sure, I'll do it. So today we're going to be talking about what do we as CISOs need to understand from the folks who are marketing to us. And where do we need to be more understanding and where do we need to hold to a higher standard? And I couldn't think of anyone better to bring on than my friend Dani. So without further ado, let's bring her on. CISO Talk time, folks. Tune in, buckle up. 30 minutes of wild rides. Here we go.
From the CyberHub bunker and studio, you're listening to the CISO Talk podcast. No sales, no bullshit, just straight talk. Straight talk. And now for your host and CISO, James Azar.
The magnificent Dani. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. And you weren't kidding. I mean, J-A-Z for sure with that intro.
One
That's
take
pretty
only.
cool.
Get me in the studio and just give me a beat and I can make it rain, right?
That's how you do it.
That's how H to the ISO came, right? Like, people don't understand that H to the ISO, which was probably one of the top listened songs in what, 2000 and in the era from 2000 to 2010, is that right? I think,
Yep.
right?
Mhm.
Was a one take song where Kanye West dropped the beat and Jay-Z came in and he recorded it in one take, and that was H to the ISO. No
way.
editing, no nothing. It's just, that was it.
That's awesome. Well done. I love it. That's how you should do it, I think.
One take only, right?
Yeah.
So, Dani, welcome to the show. Thanks for being
Thank
on.
you. Thanks for having
I'm really
me.
excited for today's episode because we got two podcasters, so we're talking in our podcaster voice, right? So we totally sound like a real crime podcast. Like, hey, everyone, this story is unbelievable. It's about cybersecurity marketing.
We will be talking about some crimes that we experienced today.
Some crimes that marketers do, where if there was a marketing prosecution, that'd definitely be up for trial.
We have the jailhouse on WTF, so yes, for sure. And we have the warden, Mr. Roberts.
Yeah, Mr. Roberts. He is by far the best warden for this kind of stuff. My favorite Chris Roberts comments, by the way, on LinkedIn is when someone will say hackers did this, and you'll just see him say hackers didn't, criminals did. I bet you he's got that like on copy paste somewhere. Like he's got it on a notepad.
Yeah. He has his templated responses and emails saved on his desktop for sure.
Love it.
Cool.
So, Dani, for those who don't know you, why don't you quickly just give them a little background into how you ended up getting into cybersecurity?
Yeah, for sure. So again, thank you for having me, James. My name is Dani Woolf. I'm the CEO and founder at Audience First. I've been in tech marketing for about 13 years or so. Right when I landed in Tel Aviv, jumped into startup world as a B2B tech marketer, worked in different verticals, selling, different technologies for different industries. And about 5 years ago, I ventured into cybersecurity, took the leap, found a great position at a startup focusing on microsegmentation and network segmentation. Loved what they were doing there, believed in the technology, did some research, and that was my first gig as a cybersecurity marketer, and been loving it ever since.
So how important for you as a marketer is the product?
Very important. One, from a innovation standpoint, it just helps sell better to the buyer. Understanding the product, being able to understand the product is critical as a marketer as well. We'll get into some of those challenges a little bit later in terms of understanding things in security as a marketer. But I think, I've done my research as a cybersecurity marketer, moving different positions in different startups. I've done my research to understand, is this a useful product? Is it actually helping the practitioner do their job? Is it alleviating the stress and pressure and the challenges that they're going through? Or is it just fluff? So if it's just fluff or adding to the noise in terms of the technology and the complexity, then I'm less inclined to work for a company that creates a product like that. So it's critical for sure.
How many marketers do you think actually go through the process of studying the product or marketing, looking at it from a practitioner perspective before really kind of stepping out into creating content or pushing the product out?
I don't think I could say how many, but maybe not enough, I'd say.
Okay.
You have the product marketer who's tying in the product story to your campaigns, understanding the audience, that kind of stuff. But translating technical specifications to lingo that you could use within your marketing campaigns and websites, so on and so forth. I don't think enough marketers within different functions in the organization understand the product, understand technology, understand the industry well enough in order to translate product to business goals and business challenges of the practitioner.
So, excuse me, I consider this to be the greatest debate in security. Whose responsibility is it to explain that to the marketers? Is it the practitioners, or is it the company, or is it the marketer? Right. But, one of my one of the things I enjoy and dislike simultaneously is kind of that blame game of, well, we're just trying to sell a product, and you're just overwhelming us with all kinds of different things. Where do you think the balance should be in terms of the responsibility within the industry to responsible marketing and understanding that companies have to sell a product?
Yeah, so I think there's a responsibility for each camp. Um, I think there's deep responsibility. Most of the responsibility has to come from the marketer. I think marketers have to have this inner shift in terms of remaining curious, being relentlessly curious to learn. If you're not curious to learn, then this job's not for you. Knowledge, attaining and retaining knowledge is absolutely key in this industry. Um, I think there's a big responsibility on the founder and the organization that the marketer is working for to train the marketer and the GTM team, I'd say, um, on the industry, on the buyer, and on the product and how it ties into the experience of the buyer. Um, Equally, I think that the practitioner should take responsibility on training the actual marketer or the GTM team as well. I would say that there should be less of an emphasis on their part because they have a job to do, but I think part of their job is being open to helping those who are trying to sell to them, being open to providing them feedback, being open to giving them resources. Hey, this is what we need. Please, learn this, so that we're able to navigate their world a little bit easier.
Yeah, I'll tell you that in my time as a CISO, I've had security partners and I've had security vendors, right? And I've had people reach out to me and go, listen, I don't want to bore you with fluff. Here's what we do. Bottom line, right? Can we have a call? And I've had other people, fluff me up, right? Where they're sending constant like links and use cases and PDFs and all, and unrelated news stories to problems they solve. Um, I do agree that we bear some responsibility, and I've been very keen with sharing that. Right, if I'm in an in-person event, I was at FutureCon here in Atlanta last month, and some local regional marketing people were like, "Well, how do you think we should be doing this?" And I was like, "Well, piece of advice is stop using the word vendor, right? Start using the word partner." Um, but how do you see um, kind of the evolution of cybersecurity marketing over the last 5 years from the moment you entered the industry to today? Has there been kind of a evolution of sorts, or do you think we're still in the growth of that kind of breaking down that communication challenges?
That's a great question. I think again, it depends how you look at it, right? I think we're strides from where we were 5 years ago, but we still have a ways to go. 5 years ago, we didn't have Cybersecurity Marketing Society, which is its own little private community of cybersecurity marketers and also sales professionals, freelancers as well. I think they're sitting at like 1,700 right now within the industry and growing. We didn't have Audience First 5 years ago, which is a podcast, an audience research podcast strictly for cybersecurity buyers and go-to-market teams. I don't recall the amount of resources and blogs and articles and books that we have today 5 years ago. So we're getting there, but there's still a lot of growing we need to do on the marketing side. There's a lot of growing that needs to happen also on the practitioner side. Um, I have my opinions. They're maybe a little bit polarizing, but I think some people, both from the marketing and the practitioner side, need to be a little bit more humble, kind of, take a step back and take a look at the challenges that we're experiencing now and understand that we're in this together. Most marketers, are in this for the long haul, are in this for the mission before the money, and want to help protect the world. And so, there's a ways to go from a collaboration standpoint, from a communication standpoint, for sure. But we're getting there.
Yeah, I think it's understand that the marketer isn't your adversary, right? The marketer is trying to be your partner. Your adversaries are the people out there who really want to kind of get access to your environment.
Mhm.
What one thing I'd like to ask you though, maybe you can give me a little insight, and if not, it's okay. Every time there's a breach somewhere, we see marketers try to kind of take that and leverage it and say, if you only had me, this would have never happened.
Mhm.
Now, you and I both know that's not true. We've spent
Mhm.
enough time with Mr. Roberts to know that you know a cyber attack is kind of like an aviation accident. There's a series of errors that happen along the way that bring about the breach. No different. An airplane doesn't crash because an engine went out. You can fly
Mhm.
a plane on one engine, but if the pilots make a series of mistakes and then other systems start to malfunction because of it, the plane's going to go down, unfortunately. And then the same applies with cyber. Why do you think so many people jump at that headline um, and use it so quickly without understanding the impact to the community that it has when there's a breach?
Yeah, it's funny. We just talked about this an hour and a half ago on the live WTF. Unfortunately, we're experiencing some of those issues in crises right now. Um, I think it's lack of education and lack of empathy on the marketer side. There's this thought on the marketer side that, oh, well, we have a headline, let's use it as clickbait. They're going to, and use FUD because they're in a stressful time. They're going to definitely click on my email or my campaign because we can solve it. But no, that does not work. It's blatantly said by practitioners that does not work. I have no time. I'm a practitioner. I have no time to even look at your message because I'm dealing with these issues right now. It's just lack of knowledge and ignorancy, in my opinion, and lack of curiosity and empathy on the side of the marketing team and or marketer or salesperson or pre-sales BDR, whatever. FUD doesn't work. Whoever's using FUD is not listening, is not doing their research, is not listening to WTF, is not listening to A1. But, there's so many, so many cases and posts on social media where practitioners say FUD doesn't work. But again, I need to hit my mark. I need to hit my quota. So I'm going to try it out anyway because I don't know a better way.
So is that an issue potentially with the founders and leadership of specific companies where this kind of message, is kind of, there's a saying in Hebrew, "Adag masriach me'arosh." It means the fish stinks from its head first. Is that more of a cultural issue to based on your experience, right? Don't pinpoint anyone or anything specifically. Do you think it's singular mistakes among a lot of people, or is it more of a, kind of starts at the head and really escalates downstream?
I haven't experienced FUD come from the top,
Okay.
not from investors, not from founders or CTOs or anything like that. I've experienced, particular tactics that I necessarily agree with from the top, but FUD not necessarily. I think FUD and kind of shady tactics come from uneducated, marketers and sellers. I do think that maybe particular campaign messages regarding terminology or buzzwords, if you will, have been kind of pushed hard on my plate from either the founder or the CTO or sometimes even the CMO, which is fine because you want to test the message out, but it's our responsibility as marketers to utilize those words in context. And I've seen a fair share of buzzwords, lingo, copy used out of context. I've done it. That's how I met Chris, by the way. I used a buzzword out of context.
You got one of the famous Chris responses.
It's bittersweet. It's bittersweet. I'm glad I did it, but I'm like, I never want to do it again. So I know we kind of went down a different rabbit hole there, but yeah, nothing from the top in terms of FUD, but
no, I mean,
fortunately.
I think the fact that you say that is reassuring.
Mhm.
So then it goes to, shouldn't the founders be a bit more in tune in terms of policy in their organization to say when company X goes through Y, don't do X?
100%. Most do not. I love that you said this because I just dropped this episode that I had with Limor Kesem, who she does crisis management, and she basically listed out how to handle a crisis and commander's intent and all that kind of stuff. Maybe we should drop it in some of the resources for this episode, but yes, they should. My assumption, okay, this is very strong, so many do not. And I've worked with Series B, C, D companies. My assumption is that some of the earlier stage companies might not have that in place, but again, I've been fortunate enough to work in companies where the founder was very cognizant of what needs to happen when shit hits the fan. What are the steps we need to take? How do we need to communicate? Who needs to communicate? What are we set up internally to handle that before it even happens? So I've been fortunate, but I know for a fact that many other startups may not have those resources or knowledge.
But you see this coming even from like big companies that are publicly traded, right?
Oh yeah,
You've got
100%.
like, we talk about shared responsibility, right? And security shared responsibility is a very, very true, by the way, it rings true to the entire sense of what a security partner is supposed to be doing to a CISO, to their respective security teams, to the industry as a whole, right? We're only as good as our supply chain. And if the last few days haven't taught anyone that, I beg to argue that. But when you kind of comprehend that failure, I think in larger companies, you start to realize that there's an inherent almost disconnect between the founders and leaders in some of these bigger companies to the rest of their team about trickling down that. Because I think that messaging is what creates the antagonism towards marketers and messaging in general, right? Is at a times of crisis, the best company, our favorite commercials, you're a marketer. Your favorite commercial after a crisis isn't the one that says these are the bad guys and these are the good guys, but it shows the beauty and badness in a horrible situation, right? And I think that's something we still lack in security. We haven't figured out a way to monetize.
Yeah. Couldn't agree more.
So your experience kind of with your podcast and everything you've been doing over the last, several years, and I think the podcast is fairly new, right?
Yeah, we're at 36. Yours was 36. Your episode was 36. We
Yeah.
launched end of March 2022. So
Wow,
yeah, less than a year
I
old.
can't believe you said 2022 because we're 2023, and I say that every morning on my show. But geez, like it's 2023. How's time flying?
It's funny. I just got a proposal for a particular service, and it's a 12-month retainer, and then this founder wrote, "Oh, into 2024." I'm like, "Holy crap! We're already talking 2024." So yeah, I get you. Time flies. I can't believe it's gonna come around like real quick. Oof.
So, technology evolves fast. And practitioners, like many people, have a hard time keeping up with technology. I'm assuming marketing people have the same. How do you see marketing people kind of keeping up with the latest tech in order to communicate that effectively?
You're talking about security tech?
Yeah, I'm talking about just technology in general, right? Like
Technology in general.
we've watched the last year with AI and quantum kind of take center stage, stuff that we used to talk about 4 years ago, and it used to be kind of just like we're 10 years away, and here we are, 2022, end of 2022.
Yeah.
Quantum computers in China have allegedly broken the RSA encryption keys algorithm. Sorry, let me repeat that: the RSA encryption algorithm. And now we're watching Chat GBT kind of take front and center. How do you see? What do you think the challenge is going to be for marketers and security practitioners this year in terms of adapting to this new tech that's obviously going to make its way into our lives?
Understanding when and when not to leverage new tech in the context of their product, or just when to use new tech in period, not within the context. Like, the problem is, I feel like, also same with FUD, you're using it's not really ambulance chasing. It's kind of like ambulance chasing, but you're utilizing these headlines without any context into your product, right? To leverage that story, and it comes across as shady, right? Okay, you said Chat GPT in the context of my product. Well, how, right? And if you can't articulate that, then you're getting X'd by a buyer. And so I think that marketers need to do due diligence, do their homework to understand how that new technology is actually aligned to their product or not. And if it is, be very, very prepared on how to explain the context of the product to the new technology. Does that make sense?
It does.
I didn't really articulate that well, so you might need to do some magic there.
I don't think we need any magic. I think raw conversations have the power of sparking conversation and have this power of sparking debate. And the point of the show is to really spark debate and get people to think and see things differently. I mean, one thing I've taken already from you today is the challenge that marketers have no different of a challenge than practitioners do. We've got to keep up with so much of everything that's going on. We've got to do so in a way where we still have to focus on our main roles and our main jobs, and everyone's really on the same boat, fighting the same fight, but it feels like we're talking a different language when we really should be talking one. I almost feel like Chris and Gary and a bunch of others should all publish a book talking about the words marketers should use to describe X.
Oh, that audience first is going to do that, right? I mean,
Yeah.
Gary and Chris don't need it. Well, we'll just crowdsource all of it into one.
That's what I'm saying, though, is there, but then you got to get people to use it, right? And I think the bigger challenge is breaking out of a shell, breaking out of a concept and an idea to use something is something completely different. I mean, even as a CISO, right? So many times, you're trying to solve either old or modern problems. You almost always revert to your first bad habit. That's kind of
Mhm.
goes to, using that T-Mobile breach as a headline, or using, Riot Games, or any one of the companies that are in the headlines, over the last 24 to 48 hours.
Mhm.
Is a challenge. And plus, I mean, security vendors are just as big of a target as
Oh
anyone
yeah.
else's.
Mhm. 100%.
So what's one thing you wish more CISOs would understand? If you could have like a 60-second monologue to talk to CISOs uninterrupted about what they should understand about marketers and cybersecurity marketing, what would you tell them?
I know your job is hard. Our job is hard too because you're hard to access. So give us the time of day.
The response to that would be, if I gave everyone 15 minutes, I'd spend every single waking moment of my job taking calls.
So I'd say I'd counter in just as you need to, just as you do a little bit of we do a little bit of legwork on you, you might need to take that 30 seconds to verify the intent of that person, right? Um most of the people coming at you, yes, I mean they want 50 minutes of your time, but if they're coming at you um the wrong way, I mean, really wrong way, how can we educate them with alternative, right? Maybe it's like a template version on your desktop, copy paste, right? I'm not saying copy paste 100 because you get 100 messages a day, but if it's really bad, maybe it, it'll go a long way to teach someone how to do something better by just saying, XYZ, this doesn't work, do it this way, right? This is what we're trying to do at WTF, but I know it's kind of utopian and very maybe naive or optimistic to think that way. But instead of just kind of throwing shade at us and saying, "Oh, you're crap," or this person did this, or shaming someone online, don't shame that person. Give the alternative. Okay, what could have we done? What could have we done better? What is right?
Yeah, what
What
could have been done better? Yeah.
what could have been done better? Like it's not enough to just hear bitching and complaining, right? We need to know the alternative. And if there's a way for you to educate us, right? And we talked about this education side from the practitioner side, maybe throwing a post up of this is what you should do, don't do this but do this, or before and after or something like that. Give a little bit of legwork, give us the time of day to understand how to do things a little bit better. I'd say that first and foremost. um and be open to feedback. Like if someone says, I'd say if someone takes it the extra mile and says, "Hey, you know, do you have some time just to kind of review something that I did?" Like no strings attached. I'm not trying to pitch you. Then, I always give somebody 30 minutes of my time, free, no strings attached if they want feedback on something. Granted, I'm not a CISO and I don't, have that much responsibility on my shoulders. I do have to put food on the table, but um I'd say be open to feedback if someone's requesting that, right? Because at the
I'm
end,
going to stop you there for just a second and tell you this. I don't think there's a difference between the responsibility a CISO has to someone who runs a business.
mhm,
Um, in fact, in some cases, you can argue that people who run their own businesses have a lot more responsibility than someone managing an enterprise-wide security program. I've never understood the concept um, of I'm too busy. One thing I was trying to do when I was a startup, I was extremely busy. I took meetings that I knew would be beneficial, and other meetings I've said, like, come back second quarter, third quarter, fourth quarter. Like,
mhm,
this isn't a valid discussion for us today. It's not a priority, right?
mhm.
I think that's really important to do. I think the feedback piece that you talk about really resonates with me because it's something I strongly believe in. Now, can I give everyone feedback? If you see my LinkedIn, you know, my LinkedIn inbox is just as poorly managed as every other inbox I own because I'm inundated with messages, right? And I think that's the other challenge is
Yeah,
you get inundated, and so people don't quite understand. Like, why aren't you responding? Well, I'm
yeah,
inundated with 500 people just like you who want 15 minutes. I'd love to give you, but if you're not solving a problem for me right now, I'm probably not responding. And I know that's a harsh thing to listen to, but it's the honest to God truth. I'm not a dick, and I'm not trying to get, I'm not saying my job's more important than yours. And I think everyone's in the same, race in life. We're all trying to provide for our families and do the best job we can for the companies we work for or start or a part of. But there has to be also that mutual understanding, right? That I know you're busy, but maybe someone else on your team can take it. And that's one thing I would tell marketers, right? Like, you're not always going to get me, but you could get whoever on my team is responsible for what your product does. And that could be a really good way to get in, because if that person becomes a champion of your solution, thinking that that solution can really do well for our security program, they're going to bring it up on our daily or weekly staff meetings. They're going to be bringing it up when I'm doing my risk assessments as a CISO and talking to that head and going like, hey, your department is it's our risk appetite to what your team's doing is way higher than what we want it to be. So what do you need? How do we, mitigate this risk? What are some of the ways you and your team are thinking about? And that's a great way to bring you in and then get that FaceTime with the CISO. But I think CISO time, by the way, is also very exaggerated.
Yeah.
Every CISO will tell you, like, if I'm, if I've got a VP or a director for whatever your product does, you probably want to talk to them before you talk to me.
100%. And many people don't understand that. I'm still trying to figure out why, but many marketers and salespeople think, oh yeah, let's talk to the CISO. Yeah, well, yeah, I get it. I see the value there. But to your point, who's responsible for actually using the product? Who's responsible for pushing the product within the team, for implementing it, for even showing it to the chief information security officer, right? And sometimes it's unclear because one, within the organization, who reports to who? Do we know that? Sometimes yes, sometimes no. What's the maturity of the team? We talked about this last time. Do I even know that risk is number one priority? I don't know. Some people don't even know that, right? And so that education piece is critical, and that's why we're strong proponents for that at Audience First, is understanding the world of the CISO, understanding the world of information security before we can even create value, right? This is why we're doing all the podcasts. This is why we're doing the academy. It's that lack of education from the GTM side that why things are all over the place, right? It's just a spray and pray because there's not as strong of knowledge than it should be. Again, a strong opinion and polarizing opinion there, but that's.
I don't think there's anything polarizing about saying the truth.
Yeah.
Right. It's only polarizing if it's not the truth. It's only polarizing if it's so off a left field that it makes no sense. I think what you're saying is very, very true. It's a lot of times people are sprung into a role. I met a company several years ago out of Israel that made ridiculous claims around their product. And you're trying to coach these companies to not do that, and they double down, and then they run out of funding, and you wonder, well, why did that happen? Well, because you failed to communicate the effectiveness of what you're trying to do. Don't be a cautionary tale, be a successful tale. A successful tale is listen to the market. And don't be radical in your messaging. I think that's very, very important, right? Know what you are, know what you're not, and be fair in presenting that.
And I think a big one that I keep, it's burned in my brain. It's one of the first things that Chris told me was treat me like a human before you take my money. Like, it's as simple as that. Well, maybe not simple for some people, but for humans at the end of the day, speak human.
Be human.
Be human. That's it.
Yeah. ChatGPT hasn't taken over all communications yet. So let me put you on the hot seat.
Yeah.
3 questions. Here you go. Oh, this is I can't wait to hear what you're going to answer this one with. I've got a buzzword graveyard. A lot of buzzwords are buried here, but from a marketer, what buzzword would you bury in my buzzword graveyard?
100%.
I love it.
Or like complete, the ultimate, words.
Love these adjectives that people come up with in marketing, right? Like we're the ultimate security solution or something. You're
world's
like,
best.
No. Yeah. Voted world's best by who? By the award you paid money to get?
Yeah.
By the way, every time I go to RSA and I walk around and I see people put these awards on their booth, just like, I'm not talking to you, douche. I'm not doing it. Just not doing it. Walking away. I'm walking away because you shouldn't have to pay for a good award.
Did you see the buzzword report I did?
No, I haven't.
I'm gonna shoot that over to you.
I'll put that in the show resources so people.
I mean, because I wasn't, busy at Black Hat. So busy, but I was like, well, this would be a good idea to do after Black Hat, snap every vendor's booth and then do an analysis of how many buzzwords were used based on the 2022 buzzword bingo matrix. Phew, there's some, wow. It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. And the 100% was pretty popular. At Black Hat.
100% seems to do something for people. It's like, I feel like it's like a Ron Burgundy episode, like if you're watching like Anchorman.
I gotta watch that now. I haven't seen that in years.
Yeah, the second one's so good, by the way.
Yeah,
I think very few movies where the second one's as good as the first, and the second one was just as good as the first. So looking at your wherever you listen to music, what's the last song you were listening to?
You're Welcome from Disney Moana.
Okay, we understand you have a little kid at home. All right.
Yeah, but hey, like I really like Disney. I really like Disney. I mean, I love it. I like the songs; they're happy, and who doesn't need happy these days? But like in general, just FYI, like I put a lot of like Harry Potter soundtrack in the background while I work because it's nice. Or like Hauser, the cellist, really good. So.
You know who I really like is if you like listening to cellos, there's two cellos. Have you
yeah, it's Hauser. Hauser is the main guy. Yeah, two cellos.
The guys there. Yeah, my baby loves those because my wife's been listening to them ever since she was pregnant. So if we put one of their like during bath time, she tries to relax a baby boy, which is impossible to do, and she'll put like Benedicos or something, and then the kid's like smashing water to that song. And then I got to put on their AC/DC rendition of something.
That's hilarious.
And what book are you listening or reading nowadays?
So I'm not reading anything right now. That's on hold because I'm doing a lot of research and writing. But the last book I read was Empathy in Action. And for the life of me, I don't recall the author, but I will drop it afterwards. Great book. Aligns with a lot of my values as a marketer. Aligns with the values. Oh, there's my dog shaking it. Aligns with the values of a lot of customer-led and customer-first marketers as well. So, yeah, really good book.
Dani, how can people get in touch with you?
So you can find me on LinkedIn. I'm always on LinkedIn. Dani Woolf, DANI WOOLF. That's 2 O's and an LF. Or you can check me out, check out all the stuff and check me out on Audience First. That's audience1st.fm. That's the website. Take a look at all the cool podcasts, all the cool content, all the cool services I provide. Yeah, I love it. And we're on LinkedIn also, by the way, doing a lot of free live episodes for cyber marketers and salespeople with Chris Roberts. So also probably peppered in throughout Chris Roberts' comments and posts too. So if you follow Chris, I know that he likes to drop Audience First in my name as well when he's upset and growling at a vendor. So yes. And by the way, for the CISOs who are listening in, if you are victim of a poor marketing or sales message, feel free to reach out to me at Dani, DANI, at WTFDidIJustRead.com. you could forward me any of the shady messages and we will anonymize it and post it on WTF.IJustRead.com. So
Love it. Yeah, that's one of my favorite segments that you do with Chris, by the way.
cool.
WTF, what did I just read? And you're like, yep, that's horrible. All right, y'all. Dani, thanks for coming on the show. Really appreciate it. This was so insightful. Really grateful. Thanks for taking the time to be on the show today.
Thank you.
All right, folks, that's it for another episode of CISO Talk. We'll be back next week with a whole lot more. Make sure to go subscribe on your favorite podcast listening platform. Find us on YouTube at CyberHub Podcast. Tune in daily, Monday through Thursday, 9 a.m. for the CyberHub Podcast Practitioner Brief. Till then, have a great rest of your day, whenever you're listening in the world. Good evening, good morning, good night. And most importantly, stay cyber safe. Cheers, y'all.
Make sure to subscribe to our podcast and share it with your friends and colleagues. And get all the latest information at cyberhubpodcast.com.